Hi everyone, my name's Mike. Thanks for joining us for part 4 of our Adeptus Custodes Codex 2022 review. Thanks to Games Workshop for providing us the Codex for early review. This episode covers the stratagems in the book. There are 4 pages worth of stratagems, divided into the standard, very familiar now categories, things like war gear stratagem, strategic ploy, battle tactics, epic deed, and so on. If you want to check out our previous 3 episodes, episode 1 covers the data sheets and the core army rules, episode 2 covers the shield hosts, episode 3 covers warlord traits, relics, captain commander rules, and so on. And in this last episode, we're going to be covering the stratagems and some final thoughts. The stratagems are... most of them feel pretty familiar from the older books. There's a couple of notable missing stratagems, but by and large, I think most players will find a use for a lot of these. What is also pleasing is there are several that make use for Vigilators and Witch Seekers Sisters units. So we're going to start off with Arcane Genetic Alchemy, which is 1 or 2 CP. It's 2 CP if you have more than 3 models, and 1 CP if it's 3 or fewer. And this is basically your transhuman stratagem, which doesn't work on vehicles. So unmodified wound rolls of 1 to 3 fail, irrespective of any abilities that the weapon or the enemy model have. The fact that it is 1 CP for units of 3 or 2 for bigger units is great. 1 CP Sweeping Advance. Use this stratagem in the 5 phase when an Adeptus Custodes biker unit consolidates. Until the end of the phase, each time a model makes a consolidate, it can move an additional 3. 6-inch consolidate for bikes, pretty good. Presadium Shield Wall. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when a Custodian Guard unit from your army is selected as the target of a melee attack, and every model in the unit is equipped with a shield. Until the end of the phase, each time a melee attack is made against a unit, it's -1 to the attack's hit roll. It's 1 CP. I think that's probably got niche utility. The main problem with it, of course, is there's only 1 unit that can take all the shields. Although it can be used on a character, because it just says when a Custodian Guard unit from your army is selected and every model is equipped with a shield. So if you take a Guard Captain with a shield, or you take a Vexilla with a shield and you need to keep him alive, -1 to hit might be nice. Deathmark for 1 CP. Now, this is one of the Vigilators stratagems. At the start of the first battle round, before the first turn begins, select 1 enemy unit. Until the end of the battle, each time a model in a Vigilators unit from your army makes an attack against that enemy unit, you can reroll the hit roll. It's kind of nice. 1 CP pre-game. Avenge the Fallen 1 CP. Use this stratagem in the 5 phase when a Custodes unit from your army is selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, if the unit is below starting strength but not below half, add 1 to the attacks. If it is below half strength, add 2. Could be really interesting to do that with, a bigger unit where it takes, 1 casualty. Say you take 6 Terminators, lose 1, but get plus, you're picking up an extra attack in net result there. It keeps you fighting at an equivalent strength for longer, basically. Slayer of Nightmares, 1 or 2 CP. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when a Custodes unit from your army is selected to fight. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in the unit makes an attack against a unit with a higher toughness characteristic than its own, add 1 to the attack's wound roll. If the Custodes unit contains 3 models, it's 1. If it's more than 3, it's 2. That's a great one as well. That +1 to wound is going to help a lot. And when most of the Custodes units are strength 6 in combat minimum with a sword and shield anyway, you're going to be wounding on 3s or 2s a lot of the time. Talons of the Emperor, 1 CP. Use this stratagem in any phase after shooting or fighting with a Custodes unit from your army. Select 1 friendly Psychana unit within 6. Until the end of the phase, each time a model in the Psychana unit makes an attack, add 1 to the attack's hit roll. Obviously, that's trying to emphasize the opportunities of including Psychana units with your Custodes army. It feels a lot like there's a Drukhari stratagem that does it with Reavers and Hellions. I don't know if it's enough to make you do it. 1 CP Purgation Sweep. Use this stratagem in your shooting phase when a Witch Seekers unit from your army is selected to shoot, or in your opponent's charge phase when a Witch Seekers unit from your army is selected to fight Overwatch. Until the end of the phase, add 1 to the strength characteristic of Witch Seeker Flamer models in that unit are equipped with. So you've got strength 5 flamers essentially when you shoot or when you overwatch. 1 CP, pretty solid. Vigil Unending is 2 CP. Use this stratagem in the fight phase when an Adeptus Custodes character model from your army that has not already been selected to fight this phase is destroyed. Do not remove that model from play. It can fight after the attacking model's unit has finished making its attacks. After resolving the destroyed character's attacks, it is then removed. So it's a 2 CP. It's not fight on death. It just ensures that your character gets to swing before he goes down. 1 CP, Wisdom of the Moritai. Use this stratagem in your command phase. Select 1 Custodes Dreadnought model from your army. Until the start of your next command phase, that model gains either Inspirational Warrior or Aggressive Precision. Inspirational Warrior is an aura. While friendly shield host core unit is within 6, you can reroll hit rolls of 1. Aggressive Precision is while friendly shield host core unit is within 6, you can reroll wound rolls of 1. So obviously you would look at that in conjunction with any other auras you're getting from, say, relics or other, inspirational fighter auras from your captains, that sort of thing, and work out which one's going to be best for you there. Retribution of the Machine Spirit. Select 1 Adeptus Custodes Machine Spirit model from your army. Until the start of your next command phase, that model is considered to have its full wounds remaining for the purposes of determining what characteristic to use. It could be nice with some Forge World stuff. I'm not sure if the Machine Spirit keyword is actually on the Forge World stuff, though. I think it might only be the Land Raider at the moment, which is a bit disappointing. Could be wrong there, though, with that one. You need to check the Forge World rules. In context of the Codex, I don't see you ever using the stratagem because I don't see you using a Land Raider. Indomitable Engines, 1 CP. Use this stratagem in any phase when a Custodes vehicle or Psychana vehicle from your army would lose a wound as a result of a mortal wound. Until the end of the phase, on a 5+, the wound is lost. So it is not lost. So it's a 5+ feel no pain against mortal wounds. Again, I don't think it's a stratagem you'll use much. 1 CP, Earning of a Name. Use this stratagem when an enemy character unit is destroyed as a result of a melee attack made by a Custodes character model, excluding named characters. Resolve one of the following for that character. Select 1 trait of a shield host fighting style that unit does not have. Until the end of the battle, the unit gains that trait. Or select 1 stance of 1 martial kata. Until the end of the battle, the unit always benefits from that stance, even if the kata is not active. You can only use this stratagem on each Custodes character from your army once. You cannot use this stratagem on a Crusade battle. 1 CP, Open the Vaults. This is essentially giving yourself extra relics. Emperor's Heroes for 1 CP is handing out extra warlord traits. Pretty standard for most armies these days. 1 CP, Victor of the Blood Games. This has been updated. Use this stratagem before the battle after warlord trait is determined for a Custodes character model, excluding named characters. You can generate 1 additional warlord trait for them. Each warlord trait in your army must be unique. It's again 1 CP. It's a great way of adding extra, combos with auras and combining it with different things. Eternal Penitent. Use this stratagem before the battle for 1 CP. Select 1 Custodes Dreadnought, add 1 to the attacks characteristic, and reroll charge rolls, or add +1 if you can already reroll them. You can only use this stratagem once. I would need to check the keywords for the Forge World Dreadnoughts to see if they met the criteria for this one, because Eternal Penitent, on a Talamon or a Galatas or an Achilles could be quite good, but I'm not sure about the keywords on those. Since we're focusing on the Codex. Fraternity of Heroes, 1 CP. Use this stratagem in the heroic intervention step of your opponent's charge phase. Select 1 Custodes unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, that unit can perform heroic intervention as if it was a character. If the unit is already eligible to perform heroic intervention, it can do so within 6 inches rather than 3. Again, I feel like it gives you an opportunity there to really start making some choice combat maneuvers to try and force interesting dynamics of combat phases. The fact that it just requires a Custodes unit, and if you are already able to perform it, it doubles it. It means that you can have a character heroic intervening 6 inches rather than 3 for 1 CP. Martial Discretion. Use this stratagem in your command phase after selecting a Kata stance to be active. Select 1 Custodes unit from your army, then select 1 Kata stance that is not active for your army. Until the start of your next command phase, that unit benefits from that stance instead of the active stance. If the Custodes unit contains 4 or fewer models, it costs 1 CP, otherwise it costs 2. That does let you, obviously pick a combat one for the majority of your army, and then if you need to use a movement one for a unit that's out of position, you can obviously spend the CP and use it, which is nice. Indomitable Guardians for 1 CP. Use this stratagem in the fight phase after an enemy unit that has fought. Select 1 Custodes unit for army that is in range of an objective marker and is eligible to fight with that unit next. So it's a 1 CP interrupt provided you're within range of an objective marker, which is nice. because obviously a lot of fights happen around objective markers. Unleash the Lions is 1 or 2 CP. Select a unit of Valorous Custodians from your army that contains 2 or more models. If the unit contains 3 or fewer, it's 1 CP. Otherwise, it costs 2 CP. Until the end of the battle, each model in the unit becomes its own unit. So obviously 6 Custodian Terminators become 6 units of 1, which has some, obviously they're all OBSEC. It creates some interesting ways of scoring things like Line Breaker, or making sure that unit can obviously score different secondaries because they can perform actions in some cases. Obviously, we haven't seen the new missions yet, so I'm saying that a little bit out of turn, but you never know. Shoulder the Mantle for 1 CP. Use this stratagem when your Warlord is destroyed. Select another Custodes character model from your army until the end of the battle. If that model does not have a Warlord trait, it gains a trait of the destroyed Warlord. Until the end of the battle, the character now counts as your Warlord for all rules purposes. If a mission objective, secondary objective, or agenda is triggered when your Warlord is destroyed, those rules are not triggered until the new Warlord is destroyed. Great way of moving things around if your opponent has to kill your Warlord as part of a secondary. Maneuver and Fire, 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your movement phase when a Custodes unit from your army that can fly falls back. Until the end of the turn, that unit is eligible to shoot even though it fell back. Obviously, you can combine that where you can then move, you can fall back, shoot, and still charge with a couple of different ways with the other rules in the book. 1 CP, pretty good. Desperation's Price, 1 CP. Use the stratagem in your opponent's psychic phase when an enemy psychic unit is within 18 inches of a Psychana infantry unit from your army and suffers Perils of the Warp. That Psycho unit suffers an additional D3 mortal wounds. The fact that if they're within 18, they're already suffering minuses to cast as well. I think that stratagem sounds really good, but I think it'll be very rare it actually works. At the Emperor's Auspice, 1 or 2 CP. Use this stratagem in any phase when a Custodes unit from your army is chosen as the target of an attack. Until the end of the phase, each time an attack is made against that unit, your opponent cannot reroll the hit roll, wound roll, or damage roll for that attack. If the Custodes unit contains 4 or fewer models, it's 1 CP, otherwise it's 2. That's, I think, really solid. I think you'll see a lot of use for that, because you're going to be able to protect a unit from all the different rerolls that stack in the game at the moment, and stopping it from hit, wound, and damage also includes, obviously, CP rerolls, which is great. From Golden Light they come, 1 CP. Use the stratagem before the battle. Select 1 Infantry, Biker, or Dreadnought unit from your army, and it gains the Golden Light ability to Deep Strike. Pretty standard. It's not limited to 1 use only, though, so you can obviously use it multiple times. And because it's not happening in a turn, that's completely legal. Empiric Severance, 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your opponent's psychic phase after a psychic test was passed for an enemy psyker and after any deny the witch attempt is made, if any. If that enemy psyker is within 18 of a Psychana infantry unit from your army, roll a dice. On a 4+, the psychic power is denied. I suppose that's just another layer of psychic defense if you go down that road, because you have to be within 18 inches of the infantry, which is obviously at a negative to test. Then you get to deny, and then you still get another shot at denying for 1 CP. Creeping Dread, 1 CP. Use this stratagem at the start of any phase. Select 1 Psychana infantry unit from your army. Until the end of the phase, this unit gains the following ability. Creeping Dread, Aura. While an enemy unit is within 6, each time the model makes an attack, subtract 1 from the attack's hit roll. That could be really good if you're running a decent amount of the Null Maidens. Again, I think it'll be situational for most Custodes armies. Rapid Reactions, 1 CP. Use the stratagem in your opponent's movement phase when an enemy unit is within engagement range of a Custodes infantry unit from your army and is selected to fall back, and then finishes a fallback move. That Custodes infantry unit can then shoot as if it was the shooting phase, but can only target that unit. I think that's great, because if you've got a decent combat unit of Custodians that's in combat and someone falls back, you can obviously punish them for it, and because all the Custodes gunfire is essentially 2 damage, or at least the core stuff is, I think that's fantastic. Covered Advance, 1 CP. Use a stratagem in your opponent's shooting phase when an Adeptus Custodes smokescreen or Psychana smokescreen from your unit is targeted by an attack, subtract 1 from the hit roll. If you're using the Rhino or the Land Raider, go for it. I can see the Rhino getting some time with a full Sisters army, but otherwise I don't think you'll see much use of that stratagem. Tanglefoot Grenade, 1 CP. Use this stratagem at the start of your opponent's movement or charge phase. Select 1 enemy unit, excluding Fly, within 12 and visible to a Custodes infantry unit from your army, and roll 1 dice. If it's your opponent's movement phase, subtract an equivalent number of inches from the enemy move characteristic for this phase.
to a minimum of 0. If it's the charge phase, subtract it from the charge roll. You can only use this stratagem once per turn. So I know at least one player who would play Tanglefoot in the movement phase and the charge phase to really stop things. Now it's only once per turn, so you can't do that. But still, D6 inches off a movement or a charge. Obviously, getting a decent roll on a move can stop the charge happening altogether, and if you can't stop that, then obviously taking it off the charge can be quite nice as well. Teleport Homer 1 CP. Use this stratagem in your movement phase. When a Custodes teleport Homer unit from your army is selected to move, remove that model from the battlefield in the reinforcement step and set it back up within 3 of a friendly Vexillus Praetor or the Alea model, more than 9 inches away from enemy models. If the battle ends and the Custodes teleport Homer unit is not on the battlefield, it's destroyed. Obviously, it requires some keyword coordination there. 1 CP, it's nice that it does let you kind of shunt models around. And Psych Out Grenade. Use this stratagem for 1 CP when a Psychana infantry unit from your army is selected to shoot. If that unit is not within engagement range of enemy units, roll 1d6. On a 2+, the closest enemy Psyker unit that is within 6 suffers a Perils of the Warp. Now, obviously, what's interesting about that is you can use... you can trigger Perils of the Warp there, which is obviously happening in your shooting phase, and then you've also got Desperation's Price, which is Perils of the Warp, but that happens in your opponent's Psychic phase, so you can't double tap them. But even so, the ability to deal mortal wounds to those enemy Psykers is pretty pivotal, since that's one of the main weaknesses of the Custodes. So that covers all the stratagems. We've now covered all the core parts of the book in terms of their relics, their warlord traits, stratagems, shield hosts, data sheets, you name it. If you want to check out any of the past episodes, go and have a look at those now. I'm just going to leave you with some final thoughts, having now spent some time with the book and had the chance to mull it all over. Do I think it's going to completely shake up the way the game is for the early part of 2022? I don't think so. I think it's going to be heavily dependent on whether we see a Forge World update to update the Venerati and the Sagittarium Guard, and then obviously the Telamon and the Galatas and the Achilles Dreadnoughts. I think that the bike army is largely going to be left by the wayside, and I actually think there might even be a build there that focuses on mass infantry. Now, obviously, when you're infantry and 45 and 50 points a model, mass infantry can be a bit of a misnomer, and obviously once you have to pay for your characters, even the cheapest characters bring your 2,000 point army down to, just around 1,800. And when you actually start going through that sort of process, if you average it out and say it's going to be 55 points a model for infantry, you're still only getting about 30 to 35 infantry, depending on what you take and what HQs you take. But when those 35 infantry are toughness 5, 2-up armor, 4-up invulnerable, have between 3 and 5 wounds, 2 damage in combat, 2 damage at shooting, and multiple attacks in both instances, 35 models can be enough, particularly once you start factoring in the Martial Carters and some of the other bits and pieces. So there might even be an infantry build there if your terrain is heavy enough, because obviously keeping them out of line of sight and then pouncing, if you're putting 30 Custodian Guard into combat in one round, that could be really provocative and work really well for you. I think the book has also started encouraging you to take some of the Psychana units, if for no other reason than to make taking a battalion or some of the more core detachments a bit easier. When you can take 5 Sisters for about 60 points as a troop choice, or take a HQ that's only 50 points alongside your Custodian units, that gives you that opportunity to kind of work around some of the limitations of having a 150 point unit performing an objective, an action or something like that. So having those 5 Sisters do that makes a lot of sense. So there's definitely incentives for taking the Sisters units alongside the Custodian units. The one thing it does negatively impact then, though, is your opponent's ability to make difficult choices for target priority. Because if you get the opportunity to shoot at a toughness 3, 3-up armor save model with 1 wound, compared to a toughness 5, 2-up, 4-up, potentially then 6-up save, and plus feel no pain model with 3 or 4 or even more wounds, getting a unit kill is an easy choice at that point to take out the Psychana unit and score yourself some easy points, and obviously force you then back into having to use your expensive Custodian units to perform actions and to hold objectives. So I think you'll either see an all Custodes army or a very balanced army. I don't think you'll just see one Psykana unit. I think you kind of have to take 3 or 4 of them, because they're cheap enough you can, to help balance and round the army out in a more meaningful way. I could be wrong. I'll be interested to see what the community thinks about the book. Thank you very much for joining us for these 4 episodes. If you've been through all 4 of them, please feel free to check out other parts on the channel. Like, subscribe, ask questions down in the comments. We always answer them when we get them. Until next time, take care. Thank you for joining us. Cheers.